Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about button fields and image fields, some of the similarities between the two and a few of the differences. So if you take a look at this file that I have open in Acrobat on screen, you can see that I have a number of different kinds of button fields and a few image fields. So to begin with, let me just create a button and let's take a look at some of the properties there. So I'll go to my prepare form. I'll come over here to my button, which is the OK symbol here, and then I'll come in and I'll click and drag to actually occupy the full space of that design component in the background. And let's just accept the name as a default here, button 10. And open up the button properties. And the first thing you'll notice is that the button fields have fewer properties than some of the other fields like text fields. And you can see that up here in the top there are very few tabs. Some of these are quite similar to what we have in other fields. If you take a look at my video on creating text fields, you can get a lot of information related to the general appearance, position, and actions tabs. The real difference is going to be here in the options. Now in general, let's just take a look at the default. Here is the field name, and we have options down here below. Once again, I explained all of these in my text field, so you can take a look at that video if you're not sure what all of these options do. Well, next, let's go to appearance. Now, for appearance, let's say I want to have a fill color of black, and border color I'll just leave as transparent. Maybe I'll change my font size here to, let's say, 8 point. And for the text color, because this is going to be black, I need to have some contrast. We'll make this white. And what I need to do, if I don't import a graphic here, I need to add a label, and that's handled over here in options. Now there are a number of choices over here in this tab, and I'll address those momentarily. Right now I just want to leave this as label, and I'll type in a name here. Let's call this reset form. So if I want a button to reset the form, and I'll click close there, and you can see that I have reset form neatly added as a label to my button. Now if I want to create a number of buttons like this identical to it, I'll go back to edit here. I'm going to right click to open up a context menu, and the thing I want to do is choose use current properties as new defaults. Now every time I create a button, I'm going to have a black fill and I'm going to have white for the text. So if I get my button field here, let's come in and create another button, and all I would need to do is go over here to my options and add a label, and I could continue making the same buttons and with the same attributes as the first one. So that's just something that you should be aware of if you always want to change the defaults. You can set the default, and then each subsequent button you create are going to have those same defaults. Right now, let's take a look at image fields. And up here in my tools panel up here at the top, you can see just adjacent to the right of my button field is my image field. And let's go ahead and do the same thing. I'll click and drag to occupy the space of my design background element there. And notice that it accepted the defaults. With this one, let's say that I want to change my appearance. So what I'll do is I'll go in and let's just make this no color or transparent. Now, there are two differences between button fields and image fields. In the button field, I'll go back to this one, you'll notice that in actions, there's nothing here. In the image field, you'll notice that I have a JavaScript, and when I take a look at the JavaScript, this is the JavaScript, and this is a script that will enable me to open up a dialog box where I can browse for a graphic image and import that image to be the button face or the button icon. You can do exactly the same thing. If I took this JavaScript and I copied it, I'll go Control or Command C to copy that, cancel out, go back over here to my button field, and I'll add a JavaScript and paste it. And now both of those field types are going to open a dialog box where you can browse your computer and import a button icon or a button face. Next, the other item that is a difference between button fields and image fields is if you take a look at button fields, you can see that right up here I've got button 10 as my name. Down here I have image 12 as my name, and if you take a look at, I'll zoom in here at the bottom here, if you take a look at this field, you can see that the name says image 12 underscore AF underscore image. So the names are different, and therein lies the difference between these two field types. Let me just get out of this and we'll go back to a fit in window view. If I were to clear a button face, let me go back to, I'll go to this field here, and let's take a look at what's going on with this field. I've got a JavaScript here, and this is the JavaScript that's going to clear, and I have it set up to clear this button face. In other words, I just want to eliminate the graphic and return it to its default. And you'll notice that when I click on this, I'm saying I'm going to get image 3, and if you take a look at the field name over here, it's image 3, and when I click on this button, you'll notice that nothing happens. It doesn't clear. And the reason for that is Acrobat's a little bit confused because on the one hand, it has image 3 as the field name in the properties, and when you see the field on the page, it says image 3 underscore AF underscore image. So the names are not consistent. They're not the same. I can easily change this, and this is what I would recommend you do if you're writing JavaScripts that are accessing these image fields that you create. I'm going to right click and I'm going to open up this context menu, and I'm going to choose rename field. So a dialog box opens, and I'm going to call this image 3. Now the names are consistent. Image 3 is here, and it's also in my properties. Now when I go over to this button to clear it, you can see that that JavaScript then clears that button face. Now the other options that you have with buttons and image fields is taking a look at the options. If you take a look at this field, notice that when I have a rollover, you see one icon appear that's different than the default. When I click and hold the mouse button down, you can see that on a mouse down action, I get a third icon. And this is how we handle this. I'll take a look at the properties here. Let's go over to options, and you can see that on the up state, I have an icon, and I simply just go to choose icon, and I added this icon. On the down state, when the mouse button is pressed down, you have this third option that I showed you before, which is thank you. And on the rollover state, I have this state that you can see that I have this icon added to that state. So this is only on the behavior being push. The rest of the behaviors do not offer the same opportunity. You can have none. In other words, when you click on this button, nothing will happen. You won't see anything. If you go to outline, if you have an image that's smaller than the actual field size, and I'll show that to you in a moment, then you'll see an outline appear around the button periphery. And then we have over here, the last one is invert, which would invert it. And those actions may not always appear. It just depends on the construction of your form and the settings for and the types of button faces that you have imported. I also have advanced over here, and to do this I'm going to revert my file back to the original so that I can get this field here. Let's go ahead and see the properties here. You'll notice that in advanced I have fit to bounds. The border for this graphic is exactly the same as you see on screen here. If I take a look at, let me go over to take a look at different options over here. Here's a button face. It could be a button face. It's an image file. And you'll notice that the bounding box is all of this white space around the button. If I click here, you can see that I've cropped out all of that white space. So if you want to fit to the field size, what you need to do is you need to crop your graphic down in size to match precisely the same aspect ratio as you construct for the field itself. Also in advanced options over here, let's say that I want to, I think what I'll do is import another button face here. Let's go to import and I'll go to browse. Okay, so I'm going to import this image that has the bounding box that's much larger than the actual graphic. I'll click OK. Then let's go back and take a look at my properties. And we'll go to advanced. And you can see that I also have the option here to raise this field. And when I click OK, you can see that I push this over to the left or the right. You can adjust minor adjustments to the actual position of the field if you have some room in this field rectangle that is going to move around your button face. Okay. Then we also have the capability for adding icon or label only, but we can also add a label over the icon. And if you take a look at the field that I have over here on the top left, I have an icon that's imported and then I added text above it. All right, so those take care of the options. Now, in reality, there are really two functions that you use for buttons and image fields. One of those is to invoke actions. So if I take a look at my Actions tab over here, I have all the actions that are available, the same as you have available in text fields. And if you want to take a look at what all of these different actions do, take a look at my video on all about text fields in my channel, where I explain each and every one of these. Most often button fields, or at least a good number of button fields that you create, will have JavaScripts. So you can use a JavaScript and have the button invoke an action. You might have it want to navigate to a page, open a secondary document, or complete a computation of separate fields, any number of different kinds of things that you want to do using a JavaScript, which provide you a limitless number of tasks that you can perform. So that's just about it for buttons and image fields. I hope that this gives you some value. I'll go back to this clear option over here, and I do want to mention that I have this field up here and it's just a blank field, and I need this blank field. It's called button, and when I take a look at my JavaScript, it's basically getting that blank. This is called blank. It's getting that field, and it's going to copy the button face from this field to the one that I clear. And since there's no button face for this, it's just going to make this blank. So, or this one right here, I should say. So if I go back to preview, notice I click and it clears the field. The very last item I want to mention is, what about the text that you use for a label? If this is a button field and it has this text, in the options over here, it has this text, hello, in the field. So that's part of the label for the field. I have a button over to the right and it's changed. And in this button I have a JavaScript that's going to change the label. I click and it says goodbye. Come over here and click and I've got a JavaScript to return to the default. And the way I do that is in a JavaScript. You can take a look at the actions over here. This script, you can easily copy and paste this if you want. I'm basically getting this, I get caption, which is hello, and I'm going to set caption, which is goodbye, and that's basically what I'm doing here. So it's going to get this field by the field name BTN. If you copy this JavaScript and paste it into your own form, you want to make sure that your field name that you're going to change the label matches what's in the quote marks here, or change the name. And then the rest of this is, the only thing you need to change is what is your label identifier, change that, and the rest of it you can just copy and paste. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up what we have with buttons and image fields. You can see that the fields are almost identical. The only two differences is that by default, an image field adds a JavaScript to import a button, and the other difference between the two fields is that the field name, when you create an image field, has a different name on the field down here as it does in the field properties. So if you want to do some JavaScripting and everything, it's best to go open a context menu and rename that field to whatever you like. So that takes care of buttons and image fields. Once again, this is Ted Padova wishing you all the very best in all your Acrobat activity. Until next time.